Welcome to the 13 to 19 podcast with me, Deana Hassanin. You might be watching, you might be listening, but if you're watching, you're in for a treat because I've got two lovely people today with me. I always introduce my guests, but I'm going to let you guys introduce yourselves. So I'm joined by Shah and Alex. Don't fight over the mic, guys, but could you just tell everyone who you are and a little bit about yourselves, please?
I'll let you go first, Alex.
My name is Alex Santana. I'm 29 years old and I live in Hastings, but I'm from Scotland. I'm a hairdresser and I also act and do some modelling and little bits of extra TV work.
Oh, amazing. My name's Shah Bailey. I'm a life coach by trade. I also do a little bit of activism work with UK Black Pride, and I do lots of coaching, mentoring and facilitating work as well.
Amazing. I'm honestly really excited to have you guys. As I mentioned before we started recording, I think teenage life is really hard. We all have different home lives, different starts in life. I can't really generalize anything, but I think also when you're in school, you hide who you are because you can't figure it out in a safe space sometimes because you have to be a specific person. But today I really just wanted to talk about your school experiences and what it was like for you, because obviously it's a lot more normal now for people to be open about their sexuality, and if they're lesbian, or if they're gay, if they're bisexual, if they class themselves as female or male, people are more open to it. We've still got a very long way to go, but I wanted to hear about your school experiences and what you went through, and hopefully to give some young people advice because they might not have that safe space to navigate. So Alex, let's start with you. Tell me a bit more about your experience when you were in secondary school.
In secondary school, it started off okay actually. I didn't really, I was obviously younger then, so obviously I knew I was gay. It's obviously just hard just to keep it to yourself.
When did you know?
When I did get
interrupt. When did you know?
Well, I'm a believer. Like if you're gay, you're born gay, and it's just whether you pick up the time and the confidence to admit it and admit it to yourself. Mm-hmm. And then if you admit it to yourself, then you're happy to go ahead and share your experience. But that gets taken away from you. If that does get taken away from you, that does put a massive mental block with everything in life, never just your experience. And yeah, there was times that people said things to me. It did really upset me. Name calling, saying things, and I didn't really have the chance to really understand myself what was going on. I knew I was, and I knew what they were saying was true, but it was quite hurtful at the same time. But I just really wanted them to respect my time and just let me wait until I was ready. And obviously being younger then, it's not really been the same. But I have to say, coming out, I didn't actually come out at school. I waited till after secondary school to come out. I was about 16. Obviously, I'd experimented and, whatever beforehand, and I obviously knew myself, but I didn't really have the guts to do it at school. And it was still kind of like a growing process for me. So I didn't really know whether I was or was I not, or, try to get through that all. It was really, it was really confusing with everyone saying one thing to you and then you're trying to fight it back and trying to look at girls differently. It was just really strange. So I didn't actually come out to after school, and that's when, once I left school, that's when I properly was myself and was confident and happy, and I'd made the right friends and good people around me to say it. And ever since then it's been hearsay. So I'm kind of happy with that.
Nice. And Shah, what about you?
I mean, I think for me in school, it was more about, I played football, I did lots of sports, and it was more like of a stereotype. So I think it was more about other people like labelling me as gay rather than me feeling as though. So I think at that time you're trying to explore, and sometimes when people are saying things to you, it makes you question yourself even more. So for me, being in school, and I went to quite I don't know if I say a white school. So I was one of the only people of colour in my school. I definitely was the only person who I would have thought was like queer or a lesbian. So I think for me, it was about trying to understand as much as I can about me, so that when these people would say these things about me, or to me even, if they had the audacity, then I sort of could hold my own and be like, well, actually, because I know this about me, this is the truth. And I think that's one of the lessons that I've learned more and more growing up, and becoming an adulting, if you like, that the more affirmative you are about who you are and the more you know about yourself, the less sort of anxiety and worry you have about the labels that other people give you, and the more of yourself that you sort of begin to feel. But when you're going through school, I think it's easy to take on everything that everyone else says and feel like that's a judgment, but it's about taking it not as a judgment and just as an interesting thing, because this is the most exciting time for you to explore who you really are and how other people see you too. So that's sort of how I managed to get through it.
Definitely. I think for both of you, obviously you would have had different experiences, but it must have been really hard. Like even me working out who I am as a person and what I liked was really difficult, because I was trying to be cool and it was cool to do X, Y, Z. So it was really hard to try and go away from that label and actually see who you are and what your hobbies are. So what kind of things did people say to you that made you reflect and think, okay, wait, who am I? Who do I want to be?
I think for me, the things that really sort of made me reflect were when people started to sort of fancy other people. And there were lots of discussions about, oh my God, he's so fit. Oh my God, he's paying, and all of those conversations. And I just sort of didn't really get it. I was like, well, yeah, he's really nice. He's really good at football. Or like, oh my God, he's so good at maths. But I never sort of had that like, ooh, I really want to be intimate with that person. Whereas when the boys were having those conversations, or, you know, there was a really attractive PE teacher who was female and had that sort of gay air, if you like, there's that whole stereotype of the gay PE teacher, that those were the kind of people who made me sort of question. So I guess it was around like listening to other people's conversations and figuring, hang on a minute, I don't quite sort of feel the same way as you, but then at the same time pretending that I did, so that, and I knew as soon as you sort of start trying to say things to fit in that you know aren't true, I think that's like, okay, I need to start questioning myself now. Why am I pretending that I feel this way when actually I don't think Fred's fit? I just think that he's really good at football.
Yeah. And maths. You like someone else to maths as well.
It's because I'm so bad at maths. Actually, I'm like, oh my gosh, Deana does maths. This is amazing.
I got you. And obviously, I might be stereotyping. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's a lot harder for a guy to be honest about his sexuality than it is for a girl. So, Alex, do you agree? Did you have anyone else in your school that was a lesbian or bisexual or anything? And did they get a different treatment?
There was definitely other people there at school that were like myself. They were a bit older, I remember. So I remember I was in like first year and they were like, you know, senior years, and they had obviously had the courage to come out and were quite happy. So I actually seen them as more like, that's who I am, because that's what I am kind of the way. But for me, I always hung around with girls. So I never had any boys as friends. I never really had anything in common with them. So the only thing that I remember thinking was, when we were at school and we were changing it for gym, and I would look at all these boys and all the conversations that were going on, I would just never really want to agree with it. And I wish I would run into the girls' changing room, because I'd have such a laugh with all them, and the girls loved me for that. Like, it didn't matter, you know, because they kind of had a thought about it. But I always was around girls, so I was agreeing with them when they were saying he was hot and he was hot, but I wasn't saying it out loud. I was saying, oh no, like that. I don't know why you're talking to me about things like that, but I was really actually agreeing with them in my head.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you didn't actually officially come out until you left school. What was it like for you in your own head, having to pretend to be someone else?
It was really hard. Like, it was, you know, I mean, I think the only person it was harder for was myself. Like, everyone else knew around me. Everyone knew. Everyone could see it, that I was hurting inside. And parents, friends and families. It was just, luckily they had really respected me and gave me time to come out and say who I was. But pretending was just, looking back now, I think obviously why did I bother even doing that? Because obviously looking for myself now, I could see exactly who I was, and I was hiding it, and I was so shy, and I'm nothing like what I am today. I was really, really in a shell, and, you know, the shell broke free.
What did that feel like when you eventually broke out of that shell?
As soon as I left school, I told my friends, and I burst out crying, and she gave me a massive hug, said, Alex, I know, and I love you to bits. And she just gave me a massive hug. And for me, that was like, we're still friends to this day. You know, so for me, that was like, oh, thank God. Like, I just felt like a weight off my shoulders, and I can just, you know, find myself even more now and just experiment and just talk to different types of guys, and or use apps or do things like that. So that was really the beginning. So the whole school thing for me was like more like it was like a challenge. And looking back now, I don't remember that much of it, you know, when I think about it, because I just didn't like it that much. I just didn't like it, that I didn't want to remember that. But it wasn't until afterwards that I actually remember how I kind of transitioned from, you know, where I was to who I am now.
Yeah. And Charles, what about you? Did you say you came out in school, or was that after?
So I came out when I was about sort of 17. So I was in like, I stayed on at school for sixth form. So I was technically in the same school, but I was obviously not in school age.
How do people take it?
I think because I played football, lots of people assumed that I was anyway. Some people were really shocked about it actually, because they was like, "Oh, you don't look like a lesbian." You know, they were like, "Well, you've got." I used to like wear dresses and like be quite femme and just, you know, just be really comfortable in like exploring makeup and the things that you do as a teenager. So I think people were worried that it was a phase for me. Because I wasn't popular with boys, but if, you know, there was always like someone who like wanted to go out or something, you know, you have those little relationships, and, you know, so I think when I came out, people were just a bit like, oh, she's going through a phase. I think my mum was like, it's the football, it's the
She's not
sure,
she doesn't know.
Yeah, we'll give her a few years, or we'll give her a few months and she'll grow out of it. So I think at first people just were really like, okay, hun, if that's what you think, and they really didn't like believe me. And then I think when they realised that, you know, this is who I am, I'm serious, and this is my life, I think they were shocked because I'm half Jamaican and half Indian, and culturally it wasn't really like something that would be accepted. But irrespective of that, I was always quite spiritual. So for me, it was like I always knew that I was in touch with masculine and feminine energy. I always felt like, you know, I always felt a bit queer, if you like. So because it was so normal to me, I just disregarded what they said, really, and just continued on my path. I wasn't really bothered about losing friends or losing family or people not speaking to me, because I just really was comfortable being me now at this point. When I came out, I had really fully accepted that I was queer, and no one was going to tell me anything different at that point.
You guys seem to have such a strong mental attitude from a young age, because I was so like rubbish. Anything would affect me when I was younger. So if anybody said anything to me, or anyone assigned me a new label that I didn't like, I'd like fall apart. How did you guys stay so strong?
Well, I think it was actually the experience that made me strong. You know, I think it was going through that put up, you know, strong mindset on me. And because you're having people saying things or giving you some kind of abuse, not all the time, but when they do, back then it did hurt. Of course it did. Did I show them? No, I never. So from then on, you know, you take it in, and you've heard it all before now. So I can't even remember the last time someone said anything to me that was, or it either goes in one ear or out the other. So I don't remember anymore. But back then, yeah, it does affect you, and obviously it makes you stronger. You know, so you're just kind of having to learn from it, and, you know, take it in and just build it up and just make something positive out of it.
What about you, Shah?
Yeah, I think I completely agree with what Alex is saying. At the time, you know, in secondary school, there's so many things to be insecure about, and I wasn't this strong then. You know, I spent lots of lunch times in the toilets because there's all politics around where you sit for your lunch. There's all different groups, and that you have to be a certain way to be in a certain group, and there wasn't like a queer group to sit with. So a lot of time that I felt othered in school has made me feel more empowered by my otheredness now. So all the things that I tried to hide in school, like my blackness, my queerness, having autism, all those things that I tried to minimise in school, and I really had to battle through them. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm just really strong and I don't care whilst I'm at school. When I was at school, I was, really reclusive. I had a lot of anxiety, really had to turn to, friends, my parents, and really seek out support because I could feel that I wasn't accepted in the way that I was. And that's the thing that has made me resilient. It was just like Alex said, it's as a result of the adversity that you overcome that you get this strength. And I think that is the message. It's not sort of easy when you're in it, but when you look back and if you have hope and you aspire to come out of it, it does become easier. And all of those things that are in your way, if you overcome them, you become stronger. And then you can sort of sit here on podcasts and talk to people.
Both of you mentioned that you spoke to parents or friends or family members. How important is that? Because let's be real, there's a lot of young people that wouldn't even dare do that because they think they're going to upset their parents, or they think that they're going to burden their parents, especially because some people get really badly bullied in school for things like this. So why is it so important to talk to people?
I mean, I think it's important just to express how you're feeling. And I was very lucky the fact that my parents already knew. They knew before I knew. And I also have a gay brother. And my brother's a couple of years older than me, and he's happy, and he had come out just before I did. So they didn't expect it from him as much as what they expected from me. But speaking to my parents about it, it was a walk in the park for them. They didn't even flinch. They just asked me what I wanted for my dinner. They kind of already knew. So I was very lucky in that aspect, the fact that they already knew, and they just was fine, and it was just another day. So I was quite lucky.
I think for me, I just reiterating what Alex said, the importance of speaking to other people for me was about, I think at that age, I thought I knew everything about myself, and I felt really sure. And I think sometimes when you speak to people who are close to you, they can give you another perspective on you. Now, I really value going to other people actively and asking their perspective. At that time, I was really worried about what people thought of me. But I think often when we share with people, we open ourselves up to be sort of fulfilled. And for me, I had to share what was happening. Otherwise, I'd have just bottled it up and never been able to really appreciate who I am, because I would never explored it. And I think sometimes, as long as it's safe to share, then you should always share with the people closest to you, because they're the people who want the best for you, and they're the people who can help you. And I think that's one of the biggest things to get over, that fear of asking for help and admitting that you need somebody else's ear or perspective or cuddle.
Exactly. And I completely agree with that. I think sometimes as well, young people don't want to talk about anything, not just sexuality. It could be things that are happening at home or things that are happening in school, because they think they're going to tell somebody and they're going to get the wrong reaction, and then it's not actually solved anything. I think also it's really important to understand that no one else's opinion matters. As much as you can get value from people, sometimes you've got to weigh up things and be like, actually your opinion's not valid. So if you want to play football, but you're nervous to because you're a girl and you're going to think people are going to brand you as a lesbian or bi, why would you stop your happiness just for another label? And unfortunately, people don't come to that realization till a lot later. So that's why I wanted to ask you both, what's your advice for somebody who's hiding who they are because they're worried about labels or people's understandings? What would you say to young people to help them feel more comfortable being who they are?
I'd never like to tell people what to do, but I tell them what works for me. Mm-hmm. So in terms of being comfortable about who you are, I actually wrote a little mini book. I haven't brought it out yet, but I think if I just tell you the names of each chapters, they're 5 chapters, and that's sort of my strategy for young people to get to where they want to be. So the first chapter is simply called Know Yourself. And that's about how do I feel, what's going on internally. The next is about loving yourself. And that's about celebrating your success, knowing what you're grateful for, being kind to yourself. The next chapter is called Being Yourself. So how you dress, how you talk, how you act, what you do with your time, expressing yourself. The next chapter is called Respect Yourself, and that's about setting boundaries, taking care of your health, being honest with yourself. And the last chapter is called Trust Yourself, and that's the last one because that was the hardest one for me to get to really trust myself, to take risks, to listen to my gut instinct, to stop when I need to, and to know that it doesn't matter what anybody else says to me or about me. What matters is what I know to be the truth about me. What's my authentic truth? And when you know that, like you said, Deana, everything that everyone else's opinion, it really doesn't matter. So yeah, if you had a pen and you managed to jot any of those down, I will release that as a free ebook to all of your listeners when it's finished being developed. So that's what I'd say.
You're the best. Thank you. That's so nice.
All right.
What about you, Alex?
I actually not long ago worked at a holiday park, and I was an entertainer there. I did have a child come up to me, and he must have been around 10 or 11 years old, and he had asked me if I like boys, and I said, yes, I do. He says, I need to talk to you. Now, you have to be very careful when you're talking with children, when their parents are around and what the job is, so you have to really watch your words. And he turned around and he said to me, well, I actually like boys as well. I went down on one knee and I just looked at him in the face and I just said to him, if you like boys and they like you, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I said to you, just keep smiling and keep that smile going. And he was so happy the rest of the holiday. You really touch these people when you look at them, because you can tell. Most of the time you can actually tell. You know, when you see someone that's younger, you've been in that position, so you know it's easy to pick up. And when I saw him and when he explained that to me, I thought he was going to say something different. But when he said that to me, and I agreed with that, and I just said to him, look, it doesn't matter. It says just be happy and just keep smiling. If you do, there's nothing wrong with that. And I really feel like that changes lives, you know. And yeah, true, respect yourself, trust yourself, be happy, and just keep smiling.
How did I get so lucky to get two such wise people on this podcast?
I'm
not even joking.
Babe, you get what you put out. You attracted this. We are mirrors of you, boo.
Honestly, like, I knew this episode would be like something for me to learn from completely, but you guys are like helping so many people. And even for someone to feel comfortable to come up to you and say, oh, I think, do you like boys? I think I do too. Or whoever's ever come to you, Shah, and must have opened up about feelings like that. It's such a nice, it just shows that you're such a nice person for you to be able to put out the energy that people feel safe enough to come and talk to you. And I'm just smiling because I know that people that are listening, that are going to listen to this, are going to get so much out of it. Thank you so much, guys. And that was brilliant. I've got nothing else really to ask. That was perfect.